The wind tore through the jagged cliffs carrying with it the cries of the distant sea. Max's boots slid on loose stones as he sprinted across the narrow path, his breath ragged. Behind him, the shadows of the raiders crept over the cliffside, their long, spindly limbs and glowing red eyes cutting through the dim light like blades. "Princess, run!" Max shouted, his voice raw. He could see her now, the alien princess, her pale blue skin shimmering in the fading light, her silver hair whipped by the wind. She stumbled on the uneven stones, her delicate frame almost collapsing under the weight of the moment. Max lunged forward, grabbing her arm just as a raider's claw swiped past. Sparks flew where metal met stone, and a sharp pain tore through his shoulder. He gritted his teeth, refusing to let go. "Not today," he muttered under his breath, though his voice carried enough for to hear. Her eyes, wide and terrified, met his. For a heartbeat, the world shrank to just the two of them, an impossible human and an alien princess standing together against the darkness. She tried to speak, but no words came. Max's heart clenched. She didn't have to say anything, he understood. A sudden screech echoed from the cliff above, and Max turned just in time to see another raider leaping toward them. He shoved behind him, raising his arms instinctively. The creature's claws dug into his armor, ripping a jagged line across the metal, and Max staggered under the force. Pain burned through his chest, but he refused to fall. "You're not leaving me here?" Max growled. His fist slammed against the raider's head, the impact echoing like thunder. The creature let out a shriek before toppling down the cliff, vanishing into the abyss below. Max didn't wait to see if it survived. He turned back to brushing strands of hair from her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Max forced a grim smile, trying to mask the pain that ran through his body. He didn't tell her about the fear, the exhaustion, or the strange, overwhelming feeling that welled up when he looked at her, something he couldn't name yet. They moved quickly, the wind now carrying the scent of salt and damp stone. The cliffs were treacherous, every step a gamble, and Max kept one hand on shoulder, guiding her. Below them, the waves crashed against sharp rocks, sending foamy spray into the air. The sky was turning crimson with the setting sun, painting the scene in violent, beautiful colors. "You faced them before?" finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Max shook his head, glancing at her. "First time for everything," he said with a wry grin, though it was half lies, half hope to ease her fear. He felt her tension ease slightly, even if only for a moment. Far ahead, the gates of the city appeared, lit with golden torches. It was safe for now. But Max knew the raiders wouldn't give up so easily. They were relentless, born from a planet that thrived on conquest. He could see the truth in their eyes, the hunger for power, the indifference to life. Stumbled again, and Max caught her in his arms. "I've got you," he said firmly. Her small hands clutched his jacket, her fear palpable. Max felt a surge of resolve. He had come across stars and battlefields, seen horrors beyond human imagination, yet this, protecting her, was unlike anything else. They were nearly at the gate when a shadow fell over them. Max froze. A raider hovered above the entrance, wings spread wide, eyes glowing brighter than fire. It hissed, a sound that shook the very air around them. Max stepped in front of, pulling his sword from its sheath. "Stay behind me," he commanded. Small nod was the only reply. Max's heart pounded. He didn't know if they would make it, but he knew one thing: he would not let anything happen to her, not while he drew breath. And in that moment, as the wind howled and the sea roared beneath them, something deeper than courage filled Max. Something that would shape not just this night, but a legacy the stars themselves would remember. The gates loomed ahead, golden light spilling onto the dark cobblestone streets. Max's boots hit the ground hard, each step a drumbeat in the quiet terror of the night. Clung to his arm, shivering, not from the cold, but from fear. "They won't follow us, will they?" she whispered, her voice trembling like fragile glass. Max glanced over his shoulder. The cliff was empty now, the last shadow of the raider vanishing into the dark horizon. He wanted to say yes, they were safe, but his gut told him otherwise. "They're smart," he said softly. "Cleverer than anything we've seen, but for now we have a chance." The city gates swung open with a groan, revealing the bustling courtyard within. Lanterns glowed like fireflies, and humans and aliens moved together in harmony, traders, guards, children chasing after one another. For a moment, Max felt a strange weight lift. Was alive. It was a place of warmth, of history carved in stone and light. But safety never came easy. As they crossed the threshold, the city guards turned, their faces hidden behind polished helmets. "Halt!" one shouted, voice booming. Max instinctively stepped in front of. "Princess," he said firmly. "She's under my protection. We need help now." The guard's eyes widened when he saw her. The silver hair, the shimmering blue skin, it marked her as the royal of a planet few humans had seen up close. "Your Highness," he said, bowing slightly. "Follow me. The palace is secure." Max followed, keeping a protective hand near his sword. Every sense was alert. He had faced death before, but it never felt like this, like a predator circling unseen, waiting for a moment to strike. Inside the palace, warmth and light filled the corridors. Tapestries lined the walls, depicting battles and heroes of long history. Max couldn't help but notice the contrasts, vibrant life in these halls and the dark, desperate night outside. His gaze lingered on the paintings. "This place, it feels alive," she said softly. Her voice carried wonder but also a hint of sadness. Max followed her eyes, nodding the quiet loneliness hidden behind her awe. "Alive, yes," Max replied, "and we'll keep it that way." His words were firm, almost like a promise. They reached a chamber where a council of elders awaited. Humans and aliens sat side by side, their expressions serious. The eldest, a woman named, studied Max with a sharp gaze. "You've brought her safely through the cliffs," she said. "Few could have done it." Max shrugged. "I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about keeping her alive." His eyes widened. For a moment she saw something in Max that few had, the quiet, unshakable resolve of a human who refused to falter. "You risked everything," she said, her voice barely audible. Max looked down at her. "You're worth it," he replied simply. The words hung between them, heavier than any sword, stronger than any shield. Nodded slowly. "There will be time to rest, but first," her gaze shifted to the council, then back to Max. "They will not stop. The raiders are clever, patient, and relentless. You've only delayed them. Protection must be constant." Max clenched his fists. "Then I'll be constant. I won't let them take her." His hand brushed against his, almost by accident. Max felt a flicker of something he didn't fully understand, something warmer than fear or anger, something that pulled at the edges of his heart. He looked down at her, seeing the princess not as royalty, but as a person, someone who trusted him in ways words could never capture. Outside, the wind moaned across the cliffs, a reminder that danger was never far. Max knew the raiders were still out there, circling like shadows in the night. But for the first time since their flight, he felt something shift, a small ember of hope. They were survivors, they were fighters, and together they might just rewrite the rules of a universe that had never counted on humans like Max. As night deepened over, Max stood by the window, watching the cliffs that had nearly claimed them. Rested in the safety of the palace, unaware of every heartbeat he was willing to give for her life. Somewhere deep inside, he knew the trials were only beginning. The raiders would return. Threats bigger than he had imagined were coming, but Max's resolve had hardened. He would face them all. Because humans did not give up. And he would prove it. Morning light spilled through the palace windows, painting the marble floors gold. Sat at a long table, staring at the intricate patterns of alien script etched into the wood. Max lingered near the doorway, watching her quietly. The night had been tense, but she had finally slept. His shoulder still throbbed from the claw of the raider, but pain had become familiar, a small price to keep her safe. "Do you ever sleep properly?" asked suddenly, her blue eyes meeting his. There was curiosity there, tinged with amusement. "Or is it just humans who stand like statues and watch over others?" Max smirked, rubbing his shoulder. "Statues don't get yelled at when they fall asleep on the job." Tilted her head, a soft laugh escaping her lips. It was rare, music to Max's ears. The walls of the palace seemed to hum with life now, and for a moment he allowed himself to believe that maybe safety could last a little longer. But the world outside didn't stop. The council had called for a meeting, and Max followed, aware of every shadow and echo along the palace corridors. The elders spoke of the raiders as if they were a storm waiting to break, their histories filled with conquest and destruction across galaxies. "You must understand," said, her voice calm but heavy with warning. "They do not negotiate. They take what they want. Every delay we offer them is temporary. You, human, you carry a hope we did not expect." Max felt a surge of something he rarely admitted, pride, yes, but also responsibility. Humans were often underestimated across the stars. He had heard it countless times, weak, fragile, irrelevant. But here, in the palace with a princess trusting him, that doubt had no place. He looked standing quietly beside the council, and saw the same fear he felt mirrored in her gaze. Only she carried it with grace, a dignity that seemed to make the threat of death more real. "Max," she whispered later as they walked the balcony, the city below alive with morning bustle. Why do you stay? You could leave, return to your world." Max leaned against the stone railing, feeling the cold morning wind brush his face. "And leave you here? Do you know what kind of human I'd be if I did that?" His voice was steady, but there was a quiet fire beneath it. "No, I stay because I can, because I will, because someone has to." Lips parted, and for the first time, Max saw vulnerability, not in the way of weakness, but in the way of trust. She took his hand lightly, almost shyly, a gesture so human and simple that it unsettled him more than any alien warship could. Their moment was broken by a distant horn, the sound echoing across. Max's eyes narrowed. Instinct had never left him. "They're scouting," he said. Within minutes, the palace was alive with activity. Guards ran along corridors preparing defenses while the council shouted instructions. Max moved to the front, his mind calculating every angle, every possible approach of the raiders. "They won't stop," he muttered, came up beside him, her hand still resting against his arm. "We've seen that," she said softly. Max didn't answer. There was no need. They both knew what had to be done. Humans, he thought, had a way of facing the impossible and refusing to back down. He had done it before. He would do it again. The city gates opened suddenly, revealing a scout, a single in the distance, wings folded, eyes burning like coals. It was a warning, a reminder that the storm was coming. Max drew his sword instinctively. The metal gleamed in the morning light, a simple tool for humans, yet in his hands it was a symbol, not of strength but of determination, of courage, of refusal to bow before fear. His grip on his arm tightened, her trust palpable. Max looked down at her, feeling the weight of it, the gravity of his choices. One human against a war-hungry alien force, against odds that could crush planets. And yet, he felt no doubt. Because humans did not surrender. Not when others depended on them. Not when a life, especially one as precious as hers, hung in the balance. And as the scout landed on the palace grounds, Max's chest rose steady with resolve. Whatever came next, he would meet it head-on. Because in the eyes of the alien princess, he had already found a reason to fight harder than he ever had. The first battle of many was about to begin. The morning sun glared off the palace walls, casting long shadows over the courtyard where the scout had landed. Max crouched behind a low stone barrier, sword in hand, eyes sharp and alert. Stood just behind him, gripping his sleeve, her breaths quick and shallow. "They're close," Max murmured. "Very close." His hand tightened around his. I can't fight like you do," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I've never held a sword." "You don't have to," Max said firmly, his gaze never leaving the approaching scout. "Just stay alive, that's your fight today." The moved with unnatural grace, its wings folding silently as it circled the courtyard. Its glowing red eyes locked onto Max and scanning, calculating. The alien's claws scraped against the stone, a sound that made Max's teeth clench. Then it lunged. Max met it head-on, sword swinging in a tight arc. Metal rang against alien claws, sparks flying into the air. He felt the raw strength of the creature against him, heavier than any human he had faced, faster than any soldier he had trained with. And yet he held. Step by step, strike by strike, he refused to yield. Gasped, unable to tear her eyes away. She had expected fear, but not this. human courage raw and unshakable, standing between her and certain death. Something stirred deep inside her chest, something she hadn't expected, awe, admiration, and something warmer. Max's sword met the claw again, sliding and sparking along the metal. Pain shot up his arm, but he gritted his teeth. He would not falter, not now, not ever. The scout roared, a sound like grinding stone. Its wings flared, but Max was faster. He dove low, tripping the creature, and slashed across its leg. It shrieked, stumbling, then leapt back, eyes narrowing. "You won't win," it hissed in broken words, but Max ignored it. "You're wrong," he spat back, voice fierce. "Humans always win when it matters." The creature lunged again, claws aimed directly at. Without thinking, Max threw himself between them, taking the full brunt of the attack. Pain exploded across his chest, and he hit the ground hard. But even as he lay there, wind knocked out of him, his sword was still in his hand. Froze, panic choking her. "Max!" she screamed, moving forward, but a guard's hand grabbed her shoulder, holding her back. Max pushed himself up, gritting his teeth. His eyes locked on them, and something within him ignited, a fire only humans carried. Not anger, not fear, but sheer, relentless determination. He would not die, not while she was here, not while there was still breath in him. With a roar, he charged again, faster, sharper, smarter than the creature expected. Step by step, he forced it back, finally pinning it against the stone wall. A precise strike ended the fight, the collapse defeated. Max fell to his knees, chest heaving, sweat and blood mixing. Rushed to him, tears streaming down her face. You could have died," she whispered, shaking. Max managed a weak smile. "But I didn't," he said, voice hoarse, "because you matter more than anything." She placed her hands on his shoulders, trembling. "You're amazing," she breathed. Her blue eyes shimmered with emotion. "I've never seen anyone like you." Max looked away, embarrassed, pain flashing across his face. "Just doing what anyone would do," he said softly, though he knew it wasn't true. For a long moment they stayed like that, two unlikely allies, hearts pounding, breaths mingling. Max realized then that humanity was more than just flesh and blood. It was courage, hope, and the will to protect what mattered most, even against impossible odds. The council arrived moments later, surveying the scene. Sharp eyes softened slightly as she looked at Max. "You've done more than protect the princess," she said. "You've shown her what humans are capable of. That may be more important than you know." Max stood slowly, wincing at his wounds, his chest still burning with pain. He glanced at her trust, her fear, her hope. It was all on him now, and he would carry it no matter the cost. Outside, the wind howled over the cliffs once more. The raiders would return, more of them. Stronger, deadlier, more relentless. But Max didn't flinch. Humans didn't flinch. Humans faced death, stared it in the eye, and kept moving forward. And he would face it again. Because the alien princess, life, and perhaps the fate of itself depended on it. Night fell over like a velvet cloak, but Max's eyes remained sharp, scanning every shadow of the palace grounds. The scout was gone, but that single victory was only the beginning. Max knew their real force would arrive soon, swift, merciless, and unstoppable if unchallenged. Paced the chamber, her hands ringing nervously. "How do you stay so calm?" she asked, voice trembling. "Even after what happened today, you—" "I'm not calm," Max interrupted, stepping closer. "I'm ready, that's different. Fear isn't weakness, it's fuel. Humans know how to use it." He offered a small, reassuring smile. "And I've got you, that's all that matters." Her blue eyes widened, glimmering in the torchlight. She wanted to believe him. She needed to. And somehow, despite the fear gnawing at her, she did. The council convened quickly, the elders' faces pale in the flickering light. "They're coming," said, her voice tight. "A full strike force. Hundreds of they've learned from their scouts' defeat. They will be cunning and merciless." Max felt a familiar surge rise within him. Hundreds of odds that would terrify most. But humans thrived in impossible odds. That was who they were. He straightened, gripping his sword. "Then we meet them, and we don't give an inch." Followed him to the balcony, her hand brushing against his sleeve. "Max, I don't know if I can watch you." "You will," he said firmly. "Because I'm not dying, not tonight, not while you're here." The wind carried a strange hum from the cliffs beyond the city, a low, terrifying vibration that rattled the windows. Max's grip on the railing tightened. It was them, the fleet. Hundreds of their wings black as obsidian, eyes glowing like coals, descending with precision toward the city gates. Guards rushed to their posts, swords and shields ready, but Max didn't wait. He sprinted down the stairs, close behind. "Stay with me," he shouted. She nodded, determination fighting fear in her expression. The first wave of raiders hit the outer wall, their claws tearing through stone like paper. The sounds of battle exploded across the courtyard, metal clashing, alien shrieks, human cries. Max carved a path through the chaos, his sword slicing with precision. Every strike mattered. Every move could mean survival or death. Stumbled, and Max was there instantly, catching her. "No," he growled. "Not today, not you." Her breath hitched, and she pressed herself against him. You're amazing," she whispered, almost in awe. How do you fight like that?" Max shook his head. "Humans, we don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight because we have to protect what matters most." His words weren't just for her, they were for himself, a reminder of why he refused to falter. They were relentless. A larger, more fearsome one stepped forward, wings wide, talons sharper than the first. Max met it head-on, trading strikes that made even seasoned guards step back. Pain flared in his ribs, but he ignored it. Humans pushed beyond limits, beyond the possible, and tonight he would prove that again. Watched, heart pounding, as Max fought not just with skill, but with something deeper, something that came from the core of humanity itself. Courage born from love, loyalty, and the refusal to surrender. Every strike, every deflection was a testament. Finally, Max forced the massive back, slashing with precise fury until it collapsed, howling in defeat. The first wave of raiders faltered, confused by the audacity of a human standing unbroken in the heart of their assault. He turned to, sweat and blood streaked across his face. She reached out, holding his hand tightly. You're a hero," she said, voice trembling with emotion. "Not just to me, to everyone here." Max smiled faintly, exhausted but resolute. "I'm just a human," he said softly, though he knew the truth. Humans could do the impossible. They could face death and refuse to yield. And as long as he drew breath, he would keep proving it. Outside, the remaining hesitated, scanning the city, unsure of how to respond to the human who had faced death and refused to fall. Max looked at the city that trusted him, and a silent promise echoed in his heart. He would face anything. He would face every battle, every impossible enemy, every shadow across the stars. Because humans did not bow. And he would show them that, one strike at a time. The dawn was pale and cold over, painting the shattered courtyard in muted grays. Smoke curled from broken walls, and the air reeked of burned stone and alien blood. Max moved steadily through the chaos, sword in hand, scanning the battlefield. Stayed close, her small hand clutching his sleeve, eyes wide with fear and wonder. "Max, what if they come back stronger?" she asked, voice trembling. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he wiped sweat and blood from his brow, staring at the horizon. They were cunning, patient, they had already learned from their first mistakes. "Then we'll be ready," he said finally. "We've survived before, we'll survive again." His grip on his sleeve tightened. "I'm scared," she admitted. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but Max heard it clearly. He stopped and knelt beside her, taking both her hands in his. "Fear is good," he said gently. "It keeps you alive, but courage is when you act despite the fear. Humans, that's what we do." Her eyes met his, searching. In that moment, she saw more than a warrior. She saw a protector, someone who carried more than strength. He carried resolve, heart, and hope. The palace bells rang suddenly, urgent and harsh. Max's heart tightened. Another wave was coming, this one larger, more organized. He glanced seeing the worry etched into her delicate features. "Stay behind me," he said. "Promise me." "I promise," she whispered. They arrived in numbers that made even the seasoned guards shiver. Hundreds of black-winged warriors descended, their talons cutting through the air like knives. Their leader, taller and broader than any before, landed at the front, glowing eyes locked on the princess. Max stepped forward, chest rising, sword ready. Every strike he had delivered so far had been a test. Now this was a war. The first raider lunged, and Max met it head-on, parrying and dodging with precision. Sparks flew as metal clashed against alien claws. Watched, unable to look away. Each time Max faced death, he did so without hesitation. Each time he was struck, he rose again, unwavering. Her heart ached and swelled at the same time. She realized, in a way she couldn't put into words, that humans carried something that didn't. Relentless courage born from care, from love, from stubborn determination. Max slashed, ducked, and spun, the chaos of battle a blur around him. One of his claws tore across his side, pain searing through him, but he gritted his teeth and pushed forward. The enemy hesitated, this human refused to yield, and that defiance spread like wildfire, inspiring the guards and soldiers fighting beside him. "Max, behind you!" His voice rang out as another raider leapt from the shadows. Without thinking, he pivoted, sword flashing, ending the threat. Breathless, Max turned to see her trembling. "It's okay," he said, voice low. "I've got you." "You always do," she whispered. There was a vulnerability in her gaze, a silent admission that she had never trusted anyone like this before. Max's chest tightened. It was no longer just survival, it was connection. It was something that went beyond fear, beyond battle. The leader of the roared, launching himself at Max. Their clash shook the ground, sword against claw, human against alien. Max felt every blow, every strike, yet he held firm. Every movement carried human willpower, ingenuity, and defiance. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for humanity, for what humans stood for, courage against impossible odds. Finally, with a combination of strategy and raw determination, Max struck a decisive blow, sending the leader crashing to the ground. The remaining raiders faltered, fear flickering in their glowing eyes. The humans and aliens have held the line, emboldened by the one human who refused to fall. Max fell to one knee, chest heaving, sword dripping with alien ichor, rushed to him, hands on his shoulders, tears streaming down her face. You saved us," she whispered. Max shook his head, wincing from the pain. "We saved each other," he said. "Humans, we just refused to quit." And in the aftermath, as the forces retreated, realized something profound. Max wasn't just a protector or a hero. He was a reminder of humanity's best. Courage, hope, and the strength to face death without surrender. The battle had ended, but the bond between them had only begun. The skies above were streaked with crimson and gold as the final wave of forces descended. Max stood on the palace battlements, sword in hand, armor scorched and dented from countless clashes. Beside him, his hand rested lightly on his arm, her gaze steady, though fear flickered in her blue eyes. "They've brought everything," she whispered. This could be the end." Max shook his head. "Humans, we don't end, we fight, even when the odds are impossible, even when death is closer than breath." He looked down at her. "And I fight for you for all of this." They landed like shadows across the courtyard, talons tearing into stone and earth. Their leader, larger, deadlier, and more cunning than the first, stepped forward, eyes glowing with fury. Max felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Every step, every heartbeat, every breath mattered. One human could not stop an army, and yet one human could inspire hope where none existed. Max's voice trembled. "I don't want to lose you." He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of her silver hair from her face. "You won't, not while I breathe." The first attacked. Max met it head-on, parrying with every ounce of strength he had left. Sparks flew as claws and metal collided. He was faster, smarter, and driven by something deeper than instinct, human will, human courage, human love. The battle became a blur of motion, alien shrieks, and the clash of steel. Max dodged, struck, and pushed forward, each movement fueled by the knowledge that life depended on him. He was human, yes, fragile in form, but unstoppable in spirit. Stayed close, her eyes wide, but no longer just fearful. She was witnessing something extraordinary, a human facing certain death and refusing to yield, standing as a shield between hope and annihilation. The leader roared and leapt, massive wings beating the air like thunder. Max didn't flinch. He ran forward, positioning himself between and the beast, sword raised. The creature's talons struck, tearing through stone and air alike. Max's armor took the brunt, and pain exploded through his side, but he pushed forward, refusing to collapse. "Not today," he growled, striking the leader across the chest. The creature staggered, surprised by the human's relentless fury. Max pressed the attack, each movement precise, each strike fueled by something no alien could understand, humanity itself. His breath caught in her throat. She saw him fight, not just with strength, but with heart. Every strike, every deflection, every step forward carried a message. Humans do not bow, humans do not surrender, humans fight for what they love. Finally, with a desperate, perfect strike, Max toppled the leader. The remaining army hesitated, uncertain, and then slowly they began to retreat. Max sank to one knee, chest heaving, sword slick with alien ichor. Rushed to him, wrapping her arms around him. You survived," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Max smiled weakly, blood and sweat streaking his face. "We survived, because humans we don't give up, not ever." She pressed her forehead against his, and for a moment the battlefield fell away. The wind carried the scent of smoke and stone, but also hope. She realized then that this human, this fragile, stubborn, defiant human, had given her more than life. He had given her faith. The council emerged, eyes wide, faces filled with awe, stepped forward, placing a hand on Max's shoulder. "You've done more than protect the princess," she said softly. "You've shown her, and all of us, the true power of humanity." Max looked out over the city, battered but alive. The sun climbed higher, casting light on and the cliffs beyond. The battle was over, but the story, the legacy, would endure. Held his hand tightly. "Max, I will never forget you, what you've done, what you are." He shook his head with a tired grin. "You don't have to. Just remember, humans can face death even when hope seems lost. We fight because someone has to, because that's who we are." And in that moment, the sky seemed to hold its breath, as if the stars themselves had paused to witness the truth. One human had faced death, saved an alien princess, and inspired a legacy that would echo across the galaxies. Max had proven it. Humanity mattered. Humanity endured. Humanity, unbowed, unbroken, and unyielding, was a force no enemy could ever forget. Looked at him, her eyes shining with gratitude, awe, and something deeper, a bond forged in fear, fire, and unshakable courage. Max smiled faintly, exhausted, wounded but alive. And in the distance, the wind carried the memory of a human hero who had faced death and refused to let anyone else fall. The galaxy would remember.